20 spine-chilling ghosts exposed on camera, terrifying paranormal footage and hidden stories await. The camera whirred to life as Lucas Morales breathed in the cool night air, an electric thrill shooting through him. This was the moment, his chance to unravel the secrets lurking within the walls of his family's Oak Ridge home. Flickering shadows danced around him, beckoning him to capture the horror on tape. His heart raced. What are you waiting for? Time to prove ghosts exist. As he panned through the dimly lit living room, the familiar warmth of home felt like a fading memory. A shiver crept up his spine when the lights flickered, plunging him into darkness for a brief moment. Is anyone there? He called, his voice wavering. A low whisper drifted back, unfamiliar and ghostly. Lucas. This wasn't the first time he'd experienced something unsettling. His parents brushed off his security camera footage, chalking it up to faulty wiring or imagination. But this was different. The feeling swirling in his gut told him just how wrong it was. Lucas began to document everything, convinced they were haunted. Little did he know, things were about to escalate. Whispers crawled across the neighborhood like an insidious fog after word spread about the now abandoned Oak Ridge Medical Center, the derelict building looming ominously at the town's edge. The stories spoke of lost souls and disappearances, dark rituals that should never have occurred. With each passing night, more families vanished, leaving behind an unsettling silence. First, Mrs. Dunlop with her garden gnomes, then the Rodriguez family. The air was thick with fear, wrapping tight around the Morales home. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Lucas felt a cold sweat drench his skin as he recalled the stories people who had entered the hospital never returned. He intersected the chilling tales, piecing together the prior inhabitants of the Morales house. Those who had once possessed it. As nights grew long and eerie, unease settled into his family like a disease. Each laugh during dinner sounded forced, smiles tired. Determination ignited in Lucas as he made the choice to visit the hospital that very night. Armed with his camera and flashlight, he crept toward the dilapidated structure, the crumbling bricks casting ominous shadows against the moonlight. But it was when he got closer that he felt a presence, like ice running through his veins. Groaning hinges and the rustling of dead leaves echoed in the night. A soft tug at his shirt made him jump. The flashlight beam danced wildly. He saw it just for a moment. A shadow, darting just beyond sight, beckoning him through broken windows. A collective gasp echoed in his mind. What if it was real? Paralyzed by fear, he hesitated, fighting against the pull. There was too much history here, too many trapped souls, and Lucas felt their cries echoing in his head. As he stood there, heart pounding against his ribs, he pondered his next steps. Would discovering the truth free his family from this nightmare or plunge them deeper into despair? Shadows loomed around him, wrapped in darkness. The whispers grew louder, promising revelations that might shatter everything he held dear. As haunting suspense clung to him, a chilling realization washed over Lucas: some truths should remain buried, and some shadows are best left in the dark. The night only deepened, and so did the menacing presence closing in around him. The moment Lucas stepped inside the crumbling old hospital, the atmosphere swallowed him whole. The musty air hung heavy with despair, laced with the sickly sweet scent of decay. Every creak of the floor beneath his sneakers screamed warnings. His heart thundered in response. Shadows shifted and stretched along the walls, blurring into grotesque shapes, almost reaching out for him. With trembling hands, he clutched the camera, its light piercing the darkness. Each flicker of his flashlight revealed peeling paint, broken glass, and remnants of a once bustling place. A hospital where hope lay buried among bodies long forgotten. "Stay together, Lucas," he muttered to himself, but the words felt hollow against mounting dread. As he ventured deeper, a low groan echoed from one of the examination rooms. He flinched, the sound ricocheting in his ears like an alarm bell. Something was here with him. Panic surged. He remembered the stories. Lost souls desperate to be found, locked within these walls. Would they see him as a savior or a sacrificial offering? Is anyone there? He called, the bravado in his voice fading. In response, came the faintest whisper, "Lucas, come play." It twisted through the air, playful yet sinister. He hesitated, goosebumps rising on his arms. The childish tone seeped into his bones, clawing for his attention. A movement caught his eye, a fleeting shadow sliding away down the corridor. Against every shred of caution, Lucas felt an irrepressible urge to follow. He pressed on, adrenaline fueling each step as he raced after the echo of the voice. The thrill of discovery fought against mounting terror. What could be waiting ahead? He turned a corner, his flashlight illuminating a room filled with rusting metal beds and old medical equipment. Then, he saw a figure crouched in the corner, shrouded in darkness, its face obscured. "Please don't," it whispered, eyes glinting like dark stars, pleading for release. All instinct screamed to run, but he was mesmerized. Are you trapped here?" Lucas stuttered, heart racing as compassion mixed with fear. He felt the weight of its despair clinging to him. "I'm here to help." "Help?" It hissed with a sound like nails on a chalkboard. Suddenly, the room chilled, a blast of icy air sweeping past him. The figure began to rise, its form twisting, distorting into something grotesque. "You cannot help us." His hands trembled uncontrollably. He turned to flee just as intense whispers erupted around him. They filled the room, swirling like a storm, dragging his thoughts. "Join us. Stay with us forever." Lucas stumbled back, crashing into an overturned bed. The camera clattered from his hands, clattering across the floor, its light illuminating chaos, glimpses of pale faces in the corners, their expressions twisted in manic desperation. They surged forward, shadows upon shadows, closing in around him, and he felt his back press against the cold, unyielding wall. "Mama?" The words slipped from his lips, a solid anchor in the storm, his home, his family. The fleeting moment of memory jarred him with clarity. Just as fear threatened to obliterate him, he braced himself, and as the shadows lunged, he screamed, "No! I want to let you take me." A sickening laugh echoed in return as darkness swallowed him whole. Lucas fought against the encroaching void, the weight of unseen hands pulling him down, down into the abyss. As darkness surrounded him, whispers fell silent. Nothing but emptiness, as if he plunged into the depths of a fear-soaked nightmare. Shivering, reality blurred, and he questioned whether he might join the souls trapped forever in that forsaken place. Then he felt an icy grip around his ankle, dragging him down. The terror clawed at his throat, and just before total darkness consumed him, a final thought screamed within him. What if he wasn't the one hunting the ghosts but hunted by them? The screen flickered ominously. Did anyone hear him? Did anyone care? Beyond the camera, back at home, would his family realize what he had unleashed? Would anyone dare to come looking? What were the true consequences of his curiosity? And in the silence that followed, something deep within the shadows began to stir once more. Lucas gasped as his lungs burned for air. In the swirling blackness, the grip on his ankle tightened, pulling him deeper into a suffocating void. Panic clawed at his chest, each heartbeat a desperate plea for survival. The shadows around him whispered malevolently, reveling in his fear, their coldness seeping into his skin. Suddenly, the grip slackened, and he was hurled forward. He landed hard on a rough floor, gasping in shock as the darkness receded. Light flickered above, revealing a long-abandoned hallway. The rusty tiles glistened under the pale glow, and Lucas struggled to his feet, heart still racing. "Where am I?" he muttered, breath hitching in his throat. The oppressive silence of the corridor felt like a living thing, coiling around him, ready to strike. Lucas turned to look back where he had come from but saw only shadows thick, black, and shifting, against the walls like old memories refusing to fade. He forced himself to march forward, each step echoing hauntingly against the barren walls. Then he felt it again, a presence lurking behind him. He whipped around, flashlight beams slicing through the darkness. Nothing, just an empty stretch of hallway. Get a grip, he muttered, trembling at the edges of his sanity. He was alone, or was he? The whispering returned, now carrying a familiar tone, a taunting echo of his own voice mingled with a child's laughter. Lucas, come play. It sent chills racing down his spine, filling him with dread. It was as if the shadows themselves were mocking him, inviting him to surrender to the darkness. Turning his back to the whispered calls, he hastened his pace, the weight of the air growing heavier with every step. His instinct told him to find an exit. But could he trust his instincts? Each door he passed stood ajar, casting dark pools of inky blackness on the floor, beckoning him to explore beyond their thresholds. At the end of the hallway, a door stood slightly open. The temptation to peek inside was almost unbearable. The childlike giggle erupted once again, echoing off the walls. Don't you want to see? With a resolute breath, he stepped toward the door. Just as he reached out, a sudden gust of wind slammed it shut. The sharp sound cut through the air, stopping him cold. The whispers grew louder, infusing his mind with confusion laden with fear. Join us. They screamed as walls around him shivered, appearing ready to collapse. Vision clouded, Lucas felt his thoughts begin to splinter, splashes of memory intertwining with fractured shadows of dark figures and lost souls. His pulse raced. What were they? Who were they? Desperate to escape their reach, Lucas stumbled back, but without warning, the floor shifted beneath him. He lost his balance, falling hard against the unforgiving ground. From behind, he heard it again, the low, guttural laughter mixing with sobs. They resonated through the hallway, wrapping around him, squeezing the air from his lungs. They were gathering. He could sense them, feel their icy breath at his neck. Please no. He gasped, writhing on the floor, praying for a reprieve. Then, just as suddenly as they gathered, the whispers paused. Silence fell like a blanket, thick and suffocating. Lucas pulled himself up on shaky legs. Is anyone there? He croaked, lungs still burning. A gentle breeze danced through the corridor, soft, almost tender. Then came a voice, smooth as silk yet sharp as glass, floating like a haunting memory. Stay with us, Lucas. Forever. The camera lay battered and abandoned, its lens cracked yet inexplicably still glowing. Lucas felt a pull towards it, a compulsion stronger than the fear gnawing at him. What if it could show him the truth? What if it could be his way out? But as he stepped forward, a sickening feeling surged within him. What truth? What cost? In that moment of decision, the darkness surged back, swelling with movement, hungry as it breached the threshold of his thoughts. Fear gripped him, tightening like a noose. Would he join them? Would he be swallowed whole or escape the wicked grasp of the past? And in that heart-stopping instant, he understood, some doors were never meant to be opened. Help me somebody, please. His voice rang out, lost in an abyss that craved his desperation. But the shadows only beckoned him deeper. What exactly dwelled within them? Would he ever find out, or had he just unleashed a fate far worse than death? The whispers returned, chorus of despair echoing all around him, louder than before. And Lucas, heart pounding harder than ever, felt the undeniable truth press upon his shoulders. Some stories are never meant to be told again. As he stood, torn between the illuminated promise of salvation and the encroaching shadows, the air thickened with fear. What would he choose? And would he find a way back to the light, or would he succumb to the darkness? He felt something brush against his arm, a cold, clammy hand. It tugged him closer to the void. Welcome home, the laughter echoed through the dark as Lucas froze, realizing escaping this nightmare was no longer just a question, it was the only option left. The darkness congealed around Lucas, pulling him closer to its cold embrace. The clammy hand, gripping his arm, seemed to pulse with a heartbeat of its own. Fear flooded his senses, drowning out rational thought. As he twisted away, he felt the shadows cling to him, like a predator latching onto its prey. Stop! He cried out, his voice cracking. The echoes of his plea bounced back at him, twisted and warped, slithering through the air like a serpent. Desperate, he stumbled forward, throwing himself against the nearest door in his path. He twisted the handle, the rusted metal biting into his palm. With a deep breath, he pushed it open, a bitter scent of decay washing over him. Inside, the room was dim and cluttered. Dust danced lazily in the faint light that filtered through cracked windows. Old furniture lay strewn about like the remains of a forgotten dream, but he barely registered it. The chilling laughter pulsed behind him, got louder, clawing at his back. He swung around, flashlight trembling in his hand. Nothing but shadows. The whispers had grown into a cacophony, echoing his thoughts, morphing into a nightmarish soundscape that bore into his skull. Lucas forever with us. Lucas gritted his teeth. He could not let them win, he had to fight. He turned his light onto the walls, searching for anything that might help him understand this nightmare. They were covered with peeling wallpaper, revealing dark stains underneath blood. Or something worse? In the corner of the room, an old mirror stood, its surface foggy with grime. The slightest movement caught his eye, a shadow skimming the surface, its outline indistinct and almost human. He approached, heart racing, hand gripping the cold edge of the mirror. As he glanced into it, horror washed over him. The reflection was wrong. He didn't just see himself. Behind him stood a figure, shrouded in darkness, its eyes glowing with malice. A chill ran down his spine as realization settled in. This wasn't just a lost soul, it was a grim mockery of him, an echo of what he might become if he failed to escape. The figure smiled, twisted and cruel. It mouthed words silently, then burst into a horrid laughter that merged with the whispers of the shadows. "Join us, Lucas." He slammed his palm against the mirror, a surge of defiance swelling within him. The surface rippled violently, cracking as if it could feel his rage. But the laughter only grew louder, the force pushing him back. He stumbled, feeling the icy tendrils of shadow wrap around his ankles like chains, pulling him down. "No!" he shouted, feeling the deep well of terror rise within him again. He twisted back to the room, looking for another exit, anything to break free. Each breath felt heavier, his lungs burning with the effort, as the shadows threatened to swallow him whole. Then, across the dim room, he spotted a small doorway, half hidden behind a pile of rotting furniture. Without thinking, he dashed toward it, the shadows clawing at him, grasping, wanting to pull him back into the depths of despair. Footsteps echoed from behind, quickening and restless. The voice of that dark reflection taunted him, merging with the whisper of the shadows. "You cannot escape, Lucas. You are ours." With a deep breath, he lunged through the door just as he felt the cold fingers brush the nape of his neck. He fell into the next room, a sudden rush of cold air hitting him, almost knocking him back. It was darker, the shadows here seemed thicker, and yet a dim light flickered ahead, almost beckoning him closer. "Find us," came the whisper, softer now. "Follow the light." Lucas hesitated, nerves screaming within him, torn between the menacing darkness behind and the cryptic lure of the light ahead. Did he dare approach? Or was it yet another trap designed to lead him to oblivion? His heart raced, echoing in his ears. With one last look back, he took a tentative step toward the beckoning glow. Would it lead him to salvation or further into the abyss that hungered for him? As he moved forward, the shadows seemed to shudder violently, as if anticipating his choice, each crackle of fear and doubt magnifying the tension filling the air. "Choose wisely, Lucas," the shadows hissed, a cacophony of voices intertwining, taut with foreboding. And he could not shake the feeling that whatever lay beyond that light might reveal more than he was ready to confront. Lucas stepped into the light, anticipation and dread coiling inside him. The room ahead was a stark contrast to the oppressive darkness he had just escaped. The illumination was almost too bright, a white light that hung in the air like a thick fog. He hesitated on the threshold, squinting against its brilliance, searching for any sign of danger. "Just a light," he whispered to himself, hoping to drown out the sinister echoes that still ricocheted in his ears. But a sliver of doubt crept in. What if it was a beacon for something worse? As he crossed the threshold, a cold shiver ran through him despite the warmth the light seemed to promise. All around, the shadows receded, but they never truly vanished. He felt their remnants clinging to his skin, whispering promises of despair. The room was empty, save for a lone table in the center, where an old, battered photo album lay. It was open, pages curling and yellowed with age, inviting him to explore its secrets. An urge to flee surged within him, but curiosity held him captive. Slowly, he approached it, every step heavy with trepidation. He flicked through the pages, each one revealing blurred, faded photographs that trembled with quiet chaos. Families frozen in time, faces smiling, laughing, unaware of the horrors that awaited. But beneath those smiles, Lucas sensed an undercurrent of something darker. His fingers brushed across one page. An image caught his breath in his throat. A figure stood behind a woman and child, cloaked in shadows, its features obscured. Yet, it felt too familiar. Not again, he exhaled, panic tightening around his chest. Suddenly, the walls pulsed, vibrating with a low hum that made the air thick and oppressive. He whipped around, scanning for an exit. The door he had come through flickered, the edges dissolving back into darkness. He was trapped. "Please, no," he murmured, his heart pounding. A heavy silence swallowed the room, and a cold wind gusted around him, snatching the photos from his grasp. They twisted violently, fluttering in the air like trapped birds, wrapping around him. "Remember us," whispered a familiar voice, soft yet soaring, piercing through the chaos. Shadows stretched and swirled, forming grotesque shapes that clawed at his memory. The laughter returned, that cruel laughter, filling the air with sick delight. "Leave me alone," Lucas shouted. He grabbed at the photos, trying to release their grip on him, but the faces contorted and warped, each one igniting a terror he thought he had escaped. They were people he knew, and others from his past, twisted into masks of horror. Then, in the swarm of faces, one stood out, a woman whose eyes pierced his soul like obsidian daggers. It was his mother, but twisted, her smile menacing, her gaze accusatory. "Why didn't you save us, Lucas?" She seemed to scream, though her lips didn't move. "No. This isn't real," he shouted back, desperation flooding him. He flicked his flashlight wildly through the madness, but light only deepened the shadows. The air thickened, and he could feel the despair of every soul trapped within that cursed place. He knew he had to act, to confront this twisted echo of his past before it consumed him entirely. The shadows closed in, clawing at his resolve. "Remember," the voice echoed again, hauntingly beautiful. "You left us always leaving. Shut up," he yelled, heart racing, memories flashing in his mind like a series of terrifying snapshots. With a surge of adrenaline, Lucas turned and ran toward the remnants of the door, willing it to open, straining against the suffocating pull of the shadows. They hissed, shrieked, and lunged, desperate to reclaim him. "Let me go," he cried. Just as he reached the threshold, the shadows lunged, fingers gripping his shoulders, but he surged forward, bursting through the door into darkness. The cold swallowed him whole, but he fell with a rush of freedom. Heart racing, he landed hard on a cold stone floor, breathless. But the shadows were relentless. As Lucas looked around, he realized he wasn't alone. Eyes glinted back at him in the dark, their stares piercing with an otherworldly hunger. "Welcome back," they whispered, the shadows merging around him, reclaiming their hold. Lucas's heart plummeted, a sinking dread settling in. He couldn't escape this cycle, and whatever lay ahead promised terror beyond comprehension. What horrors awaited him now? Lucas spun around, his senses screaming. The eyes were everywhere, watching, waiting. There was no escape, only a creeping sense of despair that gripped him tighter than the shadows ever could. Each heartbeat echoed in his ears, a menacing drum signaling his doom. "Who are you?" he shouted into the darkness, hoping to rattle the silence, to shatter the growing dread. "Just your past and your future," a voice crooned, smooth and chilling, slithering through the gloom. Lucas felt the hairs on the back of his neck stand up. This place twisted reality, making the impossible seem intimate, the familiar grotesque. "Get away from me," he yelled, stumbling back. He hit the cold stone wall, fingers scrambling against the rough surface as he struggled to regain his composure. The stones felt damp and alive, vibrating under his touch. The potentiality of retribution swelled in the air, and he was drowning in memories, flashes of laughter and warmth dissipated by gnarled faces filled with rage. Suddenly, the shadows flickered, and images blurred together, forming a collage of twisted moments. Each face was a story, each glance a verdict. A flash of his childhood friend came to life, her eyes wide with terror, mouth frozen mid-scream. "You could have saved me, Lucas," she seemed to say, the accusation piercing him like a blade. "No, please. I didn't know," he protested, collapsing to his knees. But the shadows didn't care for reasons. They enveloped him, pulling him deeper into their web of despair. "Fleeing will not save you," the voice echoed, somehow soothing yet chilling. The wall behind him pulsated. It felt like it was alive, a beast drawn to his fear. Then something stirred behind him. He turned, and a figure emerged from the shadows, tall, skeletal, with elongated limbs and empty eyes that seemed to absorb the light. It moved with an eerie grace, gliding closer, each step producing a low, whispering chant that flooded the air like a dark hymn. Lucas couldn't breathe. It was a form of despair made flesh. Whatever it was an embodiment of his regrets. He could feel its weight leaning over him, suffocating. "What do you want?" He managed to croak, his voice small, a mere whisper against the burgeoning tempest of shadow. "To guide you," it hissed, a voice that sounded like crunching leaves and distant thunder. "You left your family, abandoned them to darkness. Now, the darkness claims you." "No." He cried out as memories flooded him, running away when he should have stayed, believing he could outrun the past. Yet here he was, retrogressing step by step. "I tried to live. I wasn't strong enough." "Strength is born from acceptance," it replied, its breath colder than the depths of night. "You must confront what you denied." As the shadows surged, the images of those he lost danced around him, reflecting what haunted him the most, their faces twisted in pain, anger, and unending disappointment. Lucas tried to shield his eyes, but the flood was relentless. They bore down on him, their accusations climbing like vines, choking him with guilt. "Face us," they cried in unison, their voices tangling together like a mournful symphony. Panic spiked in Lucas, and in that fragile moment of despair, clarity cut through like a lightning bolt. If he was to escape, he had to confront this reality, to seek the truth hidden beneath layers of fear and guilt. With a surge of courage, he rose, fists clenched. "I will face you." The echo of his own voice surprised him, fragmenting the oppressive air. "I won't run anymore." But as he spoke those words, the shadows recoiled, morphing into a churning mass of rage. They raced toward him, a collision of pure terror. Lucas braced himself, ready for the onslaught. What would he uncover in facing the truth of his past? The shadows surged forth, and the darkness closed in. The darkness engulfed him, a suffocating wave that swept away any semblance of hope. Lucas felt the shadows press against him, their fury palpable, ready to crush. He could barely think. His heart thundered like a drum, drowning out reason, leaving only the instinct to survive. Without warning, the shadows fragmented, revealing glimpses of a twisted landscape, a dilapidated house he recognized, shrouded in fog. Vivid memories surged forward, pouring in like a flood. He saw himself as a boy, peering through the fractured glass of the front window, a mix of curiosity and dread etched across his youthful face. "Stay away," a woman's voice shouted from the depths of the house, echoing through time. It was his mother, the last remnant of her love masked by anguish. What are you doing to me?" he stammered, feeling the chill grip him tighter as the shadows morphed, weaving a tapestry of anguish around him. The skeletal figure hung above, watching, observing, as if savoring his suffering. "Confront it," it whispered, its voice the rustle of dead leaves. "You can't hide from what you did." Lucas clenched his jaw, a fierce wave of defiance surging through him. "I can't change the past." "Why can't you let it go?" The words spilled out, raw and ragged, laced with desperation. The figure leaned in, eyes void of compassion. You're wrong. It's not about letting go, it's about facing the price of your choices. As it spoke, the shadows twisted into the forms of the lost faces distorted by torment and loss. Please. A voice cried from the shadows, it sounded like his sister, her laughter now a haunting wail. You left us. You abandoned us to the dark. Lucas staggered back, grief crashing over him in waves. I was scared. There was nothing I could do. Each word dripped with remorse, but the figure merely stared, unmoving, as if the darkness relished his pain. No more excuses, it hissed. You are the architect of your despair. Lucas felt the ground beneath him tremble. The very air thickened, heavy with the weight of his choices. The faces drew closer, their expressions morphing from anger to something more sinister: disappointment, betrayal, the embodiment of his worst fears. Each soul a chain, pulling him deeper. Suddenly, he caught a glimpse, a childlike figure at the edge of the shadows. Lucas, the voice was tender, reminiscent of innocence lost. It was his little brother, eyes wide and shimmering with unshed tears. You could have saved us. No, no. Lucas shouted, shaking his head violently. A surge of raw emotion washed over him, curling around his throat like a noose. I couldn't. You don't understand. But the shadows advanced, pulling that innocent face into their grasp, the darkness swallowing it whole. Lucas's breath hitched in his throat. As it did, a fire ignited within him, a desperate need to fight back. Enough. I want to let you take him. Lucas roared, fists trembling, fueled by a sudden clarity. With each step forward, the darkness faltered, wavering as though afraid of his defiance. I refuse to be trapped by this guilt. This time, he charged, ready to confront the memories head-on. But behind him, the skeletal figure began to laugh, a sound that rattled the air like broken glass. Do you think defiance will save you? It cackled, and the shadows surged forward again, but Lucas remained resolute. I will find the truth. He screamed as he plunged into the mass, unwinding the threads of torment. But as he did, a familiar and shrill scream pierced the air. Lucas, help me. The world around him started to fracture, the reality slipping through his fingers like sand. He needed to know, could he save them, or will he, too, be lost forever? As the shadows threatened to consume him, brighter visions flickered just out of reach. They danced at the edges of the void, mocking him, inviting him to descend deeper into his terror. What awaited him beyond the abyss? Did he have the strength to save those he lost, or would he join them in eternal darkness? The shadows lunged, greedy fingers reaching for Lucas. He could feel the coldness claw at his skin. Panic surged, tangling with desperation. Each heartbeat thundered like a hammer in his ears, drowning out the chaos around him. Lucas. The voice of his little brother echoed again, pleading, a fragile thread straining against the weight of despair. No. His voice cracked, breaking under the pressure. I will not lose you. With grim determination, he forced himself forward, weaving through the darkness that sought to pull him apart. Each step felt like wading through molasses, as if something in the dark wanted him to fail. Lucas strained against it, arms outstretched, reaching. He pushed through the oppressive weight, pain ripping through his chest. The skeletal figure watched, its hollow eyes glinting with delight at his struggle. Would you sacrifice everything? It taunted. The truth comes with a cost. The phantoms morphed into grotesque shapes, twisting and churning. The faces intensified, each voice amplifying the echo of his guilt. You should have saved us, Lucas. They screamed in unison, an orchestra of torment pulling him down. Shut up. He yelled, the words tearing from his throat, fueled by a raging inferno of that lost love he once knew. He staggered, but steadied himself, sinking into the memories, the laughter, the warmth, until he found what drove him, what he'd do anything to return to. With newfound resolve burning bright within him, he hurled himself deeper into the shadows, pushing beyond frantic faces and bleak whispers. I will find you. He screamed, the words ricocheting off the walls of his own anguish. A flicker of light danced ahead, beckoning him like a beacon through the dark sea of despair. It pulsed, drawing him closer, illuminating memories long buried, his chubby brother chasing butterflies, the comforting sound of his mother humming a lullaby. "Stay with me," Lucas yelled, feeling the pull of the light gnaw at him, urging him forward. Each moment elapsed as shadows lashed out, attempting to drown it. But he wouldn't falter. Eyes fixed on the vast glow, he sprinted, the weight of his chains lightening. "I will not abandon you again." Suddenly, he broke through. He found himself in a sun-drenched room, familiar, warm. The air smelled of cinnamon. Confusion gripped him. The room felt alive, a stark contrast to the chaos that threatened him just moments ago. "Lucas?" A soft voice broke through the haze. His heart raced as he turned. There stood his mother, youth restored, a smile illuminating her face. "Mom, is it really you?" Yearning flooded his chest, threatening to drown him in relief. But then, the shadows coiled back, like serpents threatening to swallow the light. "Remember the price," they whispered with indifference. "Don't you see? They're not gone." His voice trembled, lost between hope and fear. "They need me to fight. They need me to save them from this." "Lucas." His mother's smile faltered, darkness encroaching on the edges of her warmth. "You must decide. Will you confront the past, or flee back into the void?" Lucas's heart pounded, teetering on the edge. The shadows lurked, hungering for his despair. His breath quickened. Could he truly save them, or would he lose her again? A terrible clarity washed over him. The moment had arrived. The final choice that hung in the balance. The shadows loomed closer, distorting the light. "In this fight, what will you become?" The skeletal figure rasped, its voice oozing satisfaction. With that, Lucas took a step forward, ready to plunge back into the darkness, armed with the truth about himself. But was he willing to pay the ultimate price? The shadows whispered his name, and as he stepped closer, the light flickered ominously. Would he seize it, or fall beneath the weight that had haunted him for too long? The moment hung in the air, clinging to Lucas like fog, thick and suffocating. He felt the warmth of the room pulse against the encroaching shadows. Was this light a comfort or a snare? His resolve steeled as he focused on his mother's fading face. "Stay with me, Mom," he shouted into the growing darkness, fighting against the panic clawing at his chest. Lucas, her voice faded into a whisper, the edges of her image becoming blurry. "You must choose." And then she was gone. The room shattered like glass, splintering into an abyss of swirling shadows. Lucas cried out, a primal scream that echoed through the void. With every labored breath, he stumbled forward, shards of light flickering in and out of existence. Memories flooded him, choking him with agony, his brother's laughter, moments shared in innocence, love corrupted now by guilt. Each fragment of his past embedded itself deeper with every heartbeat. The skeletal figure laughed, its sound a jarring cacophony in the silence. "What a feast you've provided," it sneered, waving a bony hand to conjure images of everything Lucas wished to forget. "Do you see your canvas of despair? It is a beautiful thing." Gritting his teeth, Lucas pressed on. The shadows spat venomous words, sidestepping his faith for redemption. "You cannot save them. They're lost like you." They twisted and writhed, emanating a chill that seeped into his bones. "No." He wouldn't yield. Each step drew him closer to the truth, closer to the brother he swore to protect. But as he soldiered on, the illumination dimmed. The flickering light, once radiant, felt like a fading dream. What cost had he overlooked? Suddenly, the shadows converged, surging with frantic energy. They reached for him, fingers of darkness, cold as the grave. Lucas felt their icy grasp wrap around his wrists. Panic twisted into a knot in his stomach while he fought against their pull. "Let me go," he gasped. "Join us," they whispered with temptation, voices sickly sweet. "Join your family in eternal night." "Never." Furiously, he twisted and pulled, drawing on the anger and love he had for them. The agony ignited something inside, a ferocity born from relentless loss. With a final roar, he yanked free of their grasp and stumbled into fragmented memories, snatching the last glimmer of light. He thrust himself forward, craving that warmth, but the shadows shrieked and clawed at him, relentless in their pursuit. The cost is steep. They howled, shadows weaving together to form horrific faces, each one moved as one, a grotesque choreography orchestrated by despair. You might become like us. No, Lucas panted, the air thick with dread. I choose to fight. But as he charged into the depths of darkness, he realized the truth. He had no clear path back. The edge of despair loomed ahead, darkness rippling with hunger, but he had a choice to make, a choice that echoed off the walls of his mind. Then, the ground beneath him shattered, sending Lucas plunging into a sea of obsidian. Panic surged in his chest as he fell, swallowed by the void, the skeletal figure's laughter ringing in his ears. What awaited him at the bottom? As the darkness enveloped him, the answers felt dangerously close, but he feared what truths would emerge from this abyss. Would he regain what he lost, or would he become another wraith, trapped in shadows for eternity? The ground disappeared, and he braced himself for impact, heart pounding, ready to confront whatever waited below. The final plunge loomed close, the unknown stretching infinitely. Would he find his brother, or was he destined to join the whispers of the damned? Lucas dropped into the abyss, an eternity spinning through darkness. The air felt thick and suffocating as he fell. Panic clawed at him, but determination surged through his veins. No more running. No more hiding. He braced himself for impact, his heart hammering. The ground reappeared beneath him, a rough surface jarring against his body, and he rolled over, gasping for breath. The dim light flickered as he lay there, disoriented. Slowly rising to his feet, Lucas surveyed the room around him. The walls were lined with frayed memories, photos hanging in disarray, the faces of family and friends staring back at him, eyes filled with sorrow and longing. Shadows danced across their features, twisting their expressions into muted grief. His heart sank. Their pleas whispered through the air, tugging at his conscience. Lucas came a familiar voice, a soft murmur that felt like home. He turned, eyes wide, searching for the source. Stepping from the shadows was a figure, his brother, younger yet somehow more mature in his sadness. The boy's eyes glistened with tears, sparkling like shattered glass. You came, he said, voice trembling. I thought you wouldn't find me. I'm here. Lucas exclaimed, rushing towards him. But the shadows lashed out, snatching at his ankles. The skeletal figure loomed behind them, a ghastly grin spreading across its face. No use trying to save what's already lost. No. Lucas roared, feeling a fierce protective instinct blossom inside him. You can't have him. He's not yours. He looked at his brother, and deep within, a quiet strength emerged. You have to stay strong. Together, we can beat this. Together, his brother echoed. With a surge of defiance and love, Lucas reached out, taking his brother's cold hands. The warmth of their connection ignited something within him, pushing back the shadows that encircled them. Listen, he urged, we must face the pain. Whatever darkness is trying to break us, we can endure it together. He could feel the shadows thrumming with rage, desperately wanting to tear them apart. The skeletal figure shrieked, losing composure, anger spilling out in a tidal wave of despair. You think this will save you? It screeched. You are all fools. But Lucas stood firm. With every ounce of courage, he faced the darkness. I want to let you take us. This time, Lucas raised his voice above the chanting whispers that filled the room. The air crackled, a storm of energy swirling around them. Shadows recoiled, the presence of a once mighty force dwindling as the light within them grew brighter. Lucas poured all the love he had for his family into that light, holding on to his brother's hands like a lifeline, refusing to let go. Let South leave this place. Together. He shouted, his voice ringing with defiance, powerful and commanding. The shadows shrieked, the sound of their fury a cacophony of anguish. They surged forward, but Lucas held on to his brother, their hands locked in solidarity. The pulsating energy expanded outward like a supernova, illuminating the space in radiant light. The skeletal figure lurked at the edge, its twisted expression a mix of fury and fear. "You cannot outrun the past. Watch me," Lucas shouted back. With one final push, they surged forward, light exploding around them, shattering the dark tendrils binding them. A bright beam shot forth, cleaving through the shadows, and in that moment, Lucas felt the weight of his guilt lighten, as if a great burden was lifted. They were drawn upward, the oppressive darkness collapsing away, like particles in a breeze. Lucas felt his brother's grip strengthen, and together they ascended, the light swirling, wrapping around them like a protective cocoon. As they soared through the void, whispers began to soften, retreating as they reached the brink of freedom. The once menacing shadows dissolved, replaced by warm, golden light. They stumbled into a vibrant world filled with color and warmth, together, hand in hand, where laughter echoed like sweet music through the air. With a deep breath, Lucas turned and glanced back at the fading shadows, memories of guilt and lost hope dissipating like mist. "It's over," he whispered to himself, feeling a sense of peace wash over him. The weight of the darkness no longer held power over him. They had faced the shadows together and emerged victorious. The warmth of his brother's hand nestled in his own fueled his spirit, igniting a fire within him that would never flicker out. Life stretched before them like an unwritten story, promising healing, sunlight, and laughter. "Come on, let us go find Mom and Dad," Lucas said, his heart swelling with newfound hope and excitement. His brother nodded, eyes shining, and together they stepped into the light. The future unfolded like an open field, a place where memories could be cherished rather than chains that weighed him down. Lucas embraced the power of love that transcended fear and shadows, and for the first time in years, he felt truly free. He had faced his demons and released the past. With each step forward, he felt lighter, and as they walked hand in hand, the echoes of lost souls faded into serene silence, leaving behind only the whisper of possibility. And above, the sun burst forth in shimmering brilliance, bathing everything in a golden glow. It was time to live. Time to truly begin again. If you made it this far, you need to subscribe now. Click that bell and choose all notifications so you won't miss our next exclusive stories. Smash the like button now to feed the algorithm, it really helps. Flood that comment section with your reactions and theories about this ending. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Your support is what keeps this channel alive. Let us dive into the next adventure together.